Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to some OPSE League of Legends action about to get started here on the Saints Gaming CA channel. We've got Carleton University versus St. Clair College, a matchup we haven't seen since the preseason. I'm curious as to how these teams adjusted. My name's Dan Banner, also known as Mr. Danners, and alongside me today, Shadi Hannah, back once again. Zedimental, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you, and I'm loving the name change. Really coming into your own as Mr. Danners. I think it's a good look for you, sir. And I'm happy to be here again on the casting desk with you.
Yeah, whether I liked it or not, it seems like that name was going to follow me around. So, you know what?
Perfect.
Just embrace it at this point. And
Absolutely.
having a lot of fun with it. But as for the match up tonight, of course, OPSC is still regular season action. I know some of our other leagues have moved over into playoffs, but we're not quite there yet for OPSC. And then, like I was saying before, we got the chance to play Carleton during the preseason games. But since then, it's been kind of quiet. I haven't really seen them, or I haven't got the opportunity to see them play, I should say. But that being said, they've been grinding away just as much as we have. So I'm very excited to see how our teams mesh up against each other. And is there anything specific game-wise that you're looking forward to, Zeddy?
I'm looking forward to seeing how our league team does against Carleton, so that when we win the League of Legends game, we can also say we're going to win the Hearthstone game as well. I think that our next matchup, they're actually currently both Carleton and St. Clair are undefeated in OPSC Hearthstone right now. Subtle flex, not going to lie. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how the league team does here tonight, and I'm hoping that we can emulate their successes against Carleton when we face off against them in a couple weeks' time.
Absolutely, and actually we don't have to wait too much longer to start getting into this game, as the pick and ban phase is just about to begin. Carleton U is going to be on the blue, St. Clair in the red. Let's see what gets taken off the board.
And it looks like coming up from Carleton University, we've got the Yone ban into the Orn ban. Now, the Yone ban obviously being a pretty targeted ban against Yule. We know he loves these assassin fighter style champions in the mid lane. He loves champions with mechanical ability where he can flex one time, make himself a montage. And Frez's Camille being taken out as well in the top lane. And from the side of St. Clair, we've got Galio, Kha'Zix, and Aurelia being banned away. Now, these are fairly targeted bans as well, as they aren't very popular in the meta currently. Right now, the meta is mostly focused on carry fighter junglers, but whereas we're seeing an assassin ban in the Kha'Zix being taken away, obviously a targeted ban against Carleton, and the quick snap pick into the Hecarim for Carleton there. Danners, we've seen this Hecarim pick before. What do you think of the pony here in our first game now of the match of the night?
I mean, just overall extremely solid. Like you're saying, we see him pretty consistently either banned or picked. One way or another, the pony is involved in the matchup, just with such a strong engage and being able to disrupt around objectives as well. Solid in team fights, just solid all around. Tanky, but yet has damage. Can't go wrong, really. Meanwhile, on the side of St. Clair, we see Olaf and Karma get picked up here. What are we thinking about this?
I like the Olaf pick a lot. Hecarim feels like a pretty unwinnable game. However, one of the only jungle matchups that really poses a threat to this Hecarim is the Olaf. Not only can he kind of match him in farm for the most part, at least in the early game, there is definitely that ability to kind of even outpace the Hecarim potentially with just your sheer farming ability. But you are one of the only champions that can actually brawl him in the jungle over the scuttle crabs without needing your mid laner or your top laner to intervene. You have a lot of generated lifesteal on your W with your axes, and you're able to kind of cleave through an otherwise unwinnable fight with that Hecarim running Conqueror 95% of the time here. With these follow-up picks into the Karma Ash for St. Clair versus the Jhin, potentially Shen on the side of Carleton, I'm really liking this lineup from St. Clair. It's very pick heavy. It's got a lot of poke and lane. It's got a lot of sustain. This Karma provides Ash some much needed mobility. Whereas on the side of Carleton, they're definitely looking at going for more of a bot focused comp, with this Hecarim being able to dive in very heavily for this Jhin with the Shen Stand United ultimate follow up there as well. It's going to be interesting to see what these mid lane pickups look like for either team. It's going to have to very much focus on mid lane priority. We actually see some very interesting bans being taken here with the Mordekaiser targeting Frez again, really putting Frez on a weak pick in the top lane, and the Zillion ban coming out from St. Clair likely targeting Carleton's support. Lots happening in this draft right now.
Now, am I wrong already at seeing, you have the Olaf locked in, and then they picked a Jhin. Jin is not like mobile in the slightest. Is there something I'm missing there, or is the AD carry on the side of Carleton really playing with fire with that pick?
I believe I've mentioned this before in cast, but Olaf, with the ability to cast Ragnarok and make himself immune to CC, means that the only way you can control Olaf is to kill him. And
Right.
Jin is very good at killing things, like any other AD carry, but Jin provides a ton of burst damage, and especially there is something to be said about Jin's ability to kind of self-peel with his movement speed in the late game on every critical strike, getting that big burst of movement speed. It does give him some ability to kite the Olaf a little bit. My question, though, is the Jin pick into the Ashe. I think it's a little bit of a weak lane. You match range, but anytime you try to cast your ultimate, you're a sitting duck for a Crystal Arrow and any other CC that St. Clair might be throwing their way. So I am a little concerned for Carleton's Jin pick here. That being said, there is room to provide some much-needed backup or support in this lineup. A Syndra mid would be a great pick for Carleton right now to do a ton of damage to Olaf. Actually opting here for the Leona in the support lane. Definitely an interesting pick if Olaf is the point of concern here.
And of course, Silas getting picked up as well. Being able to steal an ultimate is always a fun time, depending on who they pull for St. Clair's mid lane, as it's still not selected. I assume that Maokai is going to be Frez up in the top lane playing that one. We haven't ever seen him pick that champion up, at least that I'm aware of, so could be interesting. And okay, this is definitely a Yule champion if it does get locked in, which it looks like it does. Cassiopeia getting picked up for the mid lane.
This is a really interesting couple of picks. It's good that you mentioned this, Maokai. There was the very slight possibility that the Karma was a flex to either the mid or the top lane, although we haven't really seen too much mid or top Karma in recent seasons. That being said, this Cassiopeia pick almost 100% confirms that Yule will be playing the late game control mage in the mid lane, and Frez will be taking the big tree man up top. That being said, for Carleton, this Silas pick is a really interesting response to some of these picks from St. Clair. Usually you pick Silas as an ability to counter a specific ultimate, whereas St. Clair, you don't have necessarily any big game-breaking ultimates. For example, something like Orianna's Shockwave. That would be really influential in a team fight. It kind of just seems like it's more of a comfort pick for our mid laner here on the side of Carleton. That being said, we have not yet been introduced to the lineup of Carleton. This is the first time I'm seeing their summoner names as well, but let's say hello to the Carleton lineup. In the top lane, Tentakai. In jungle, Eminem. In the mid lane, P. In the AD carry role, Never Story. And the support, Dirtbag. Not really a nice thing to call your support, but he seems to be owning his line himself. And of course, our St. Clair lineup, as always, I'm Frez top, AM Trick in the jungle, Yule in the mid lane, Lazi on AD carry, and Miansfruit in support. I'm really excited to see this first game play out.
All right, so we call him P or Patalp. I think I can remember him from the last time these two teams played, and I remember stumbling all over that name, interestingly enough. And sure enough, no surprises.
I'm going with P. It sounds pretty good. I like it. It kind of flows a little. P.
Right on. As long as we're on the same page, we'll run with it. Chat could yell at us later.
Absolutely. Going into this game, though, I am really excited to see some of these matchups in particular. This Cassiopeia for Silas looks pretty favored for the Cassiopeia. You outrange, and the Silas threat, even though he can't jump on top of you, as soon as he does, he's free fodder for a poison into some Twin Fang spam. So I don't think Yule should experience any issues in the mid lane unless M&M is there to provide that pressure. And it is likely that this Hecarim will be floating on that bottom side of the map. So there is a worry for that jungle pressure there. That being said, as mentioned earlier, Trick on the Olaf has the ability to counter a lot of these ganks. So if Trick really comes up with this jungle tracking, they get some good deep vision early, they can get a sense of what this Hecarim is trying to do early game. If Trick's there to respond, this should be no problem for St. Clair in the early game. So far, feeling pretty good about St. Clair's draft here.
I mean, I'm just quickly looking over to the side of Carleton as well. Of course, they have a ton of damage. I'm saying that questionably because I'm just trying to think to myself how much damage Silas does, but I'm sure he can pack quite the punch as well. But yeah, it's a relatively decent team here for blowing up the Olaf, like you were saying. And then I'm very interested in seeing what happens up in the top lane. Of course, Frez had Shen taken away from him. So how does this Maokai work? First time, of course, we're getting to see that. Mensfo not on a hard engage or in appealing and engage kind of support. but instead more of a poke and like a shield peel.
Yeah,
With,
that's a good point.
with Karma.
You don't usually see Mansfu on these enchanter style supports. He's typically on the big beefy engage tanks or assassins that we've seen, like the Leona, like the Pantheon. I do want to mention to your point that while Carleton has the ability to do a ton of damage with their lineup, a lot of their damage is based on their ability to first lock down a champion and consistently deal damage to them over time. Their burst potential is a little weaker than what you would typically expect or see from a comp. Yeah, there's sirens in the background. It's sounds of Windsor, folks. But anyways, going into that kind of like that jungle, or rather that jungle matchup there with the Olaf being available for St. Clair, I don't expect Trick to experience a whole lot of issues in this game. As if he manages to get out of that early game with enough of a lead. There's not a whole lot of just straight up one-shot target burst available for the side of Carleton that they would like to see into this Olaf matchup. So this game is really going to come down to jungle difference.
Definitely believe it. And then looking over to Yule for a second, of course, as announced on our social medias, Yule, Player of the Month for October, the entire League of Legends squad had an absolutely insane month of October between like the Jury Esports events and how they were doing in their normal league matches here for the OPSE. It was a fantastic time all around, and Yule was one of the players, of course, who stood out and gets the Tim Hortons Player of the Month. But that being said, like Yule did fantastic, but everybody on this team did fantastic. But I'm curious to see as this game goes on, will he be the one just shredding through this Carleton squad? As like I said during the game against Windsor, as the game goes on, like it's all up to Cassio to get as toxic as possible in the best way possible. Of course, referring to the poison itself, just consistent damage across the board. It's nearly time to hop into the matchup. So real quick, before we do begin, I do want to give a big thank you to our sponsors, of course, which is, of course, St. Clair College itself, St. Clair College Alumni Association, PC Outlet, Zuckelman School of Business and IT, Tim Hortons, and the St. Clair SRC. Thank you for making this program possible.
Absolutely. And it was really exciting to see after the St. Clair versus Windsor game, AM 800 picked up the match results and actually wrote an article about it. That's something I've never seen before. Local news getting invested in collegiate esports. And it really shows that how the support of the sponsors that we have here on campus can actually really actively contribute to the growth of the collegiate esports scene. It's really cool to see things like that. I, for one, am really excited about the kind of opportunities for future media involvement in this. So yeah, big thank you and really exciting stuff.
Scared the crap out of me for a second. I think that same officer who just flew down your street just showed up by mine. Scared the crap out of me. Jump scare real quick mid-cast, but we're good.
In this round. And we are just about to get underway here for game number one. I am really looking forward to these matchups. You mentioned Yule, of course, being the player of the month, but we've seen Mansfu pop off like crazy this season. His ability to shove out lane with Lazi, of course, and then make those rotations into the enemy jungle, into the enemy mid lane, and just really be that second jungler for his team has proven to be so invaluable in previous matches. And here now on the Enchanter, I'm curious to see if he's able to provide that same value to his team. Definitely a different style of composition than what we're typically used to seeing from the St. Clair lineup. But these bans, I did want to mention about these bans. These bans were very top targeted. A lot of teams recently are really trying to put Frez off of his comfort picks and onto something he's not very comfortable on. With this Maokai pick, if Frez is able to come through and play the hard lane on the Maokai here, St. Clair should have no problems. Really looking forward to seeing how he comes up in this game number one.
I know except for a handful of occasions where it seems like if it's not a shot at Frez, but if he's going even in his lane, I feel like that's huge because he's oftentimes playing these later game tanky kind of characters that are looking to support in the end. But it's been kind of a hit or miss. It always felt like he was maybe a little bit behind during certain matches. I know during the Drury Esports Invitational, at least early on, kind of struggled, and in the grand finals, but was able to turn around in the end. And then in the last matchup during the OPSE League of Legends matches last week, he was actually starting to roll things a little bit. Really had it going in his favor. And as I'm sure you all can hear, it is just about time to go. Loading into the game. Game one right around the corner.
Yeah, as the laners kind of approach getting themselves set up in this traditional 5-point start, we see this from St. Clair nearly every game. It does a lot of work for providing good vision for your team against the enemy team. It looks like Carleton's kind of setting up a similar start here as well. Pivoting Leona to the mid lane is an interesting choice. Having that support in the mid lane means that there is the possibility for them to go for a later invade. Typically, you'll see teams position themselves similarly to what St. Clair is doing, where you have your mid laner or jungle in that mid lane spot and your support is more off to the side protecting your carries. But rather what we have on the side of Carleton is you have the support in the mid lane and this AD carry hanging back at his tier 2 tower. Really kind of a very safe approach to this level 1. Hecarim dropping that ward, resetting quickly for the sweeper's lens, as we see here. Going to go for some early vision denial, likely transition into some ganks. Trick already having his equipped here, and we're going to get ready to see these junglers get their first camps leashed as we move into the laning phase.
Yeah, Eminem down on the red side, and it looks like we're going to have a blue start here for Trick. Bot laner's going to both assist their junglers respectively here. And then, yeah, like you were saying, pretty quiet start overall, safe start. I was pretty surprised to see Neverstory just sitting back, like not covering anything, but I guess he is pretty vulnerable in the early phases of the game, especially level 1, so it makes sense. Probably, anytime I see a Leona, I just assume they're going to try and rush fire at level 2 and try and get the jump onto 2 extremely squishy champions here in this bot lane. Mansfo is so used to playing Pantheon or Leona, but I'm actually quite surprised. Pantheon didn't get banned in this game, but they still opted for the Enchanter Karma instead. So I wonder if this is something they've been specifically working on for either this matchup, or it's something new that they're trying to add to their repertoire, or having not so much of a hard engage bot lane.
I think this early into the season, it's good to experiment with new compositions and lineups. We see a quick little trade here coming out from Tentakai up on the top lane against Frez. Obviously that Shen having that level 2 power spike there with the ability to taunt and get that extra little bit of poke damage in there is a great way to establish yourself in lane. Frez taking a big chunk of damage there. But as you were mentioning about this bot lane with Miansfu, the Karma pickup here actually I think is a really good pick to start off the laning phase, like kind of pick earlier in the draft rather. Because it gives you so much protection against these initiation supports. So there is likely a chance that this was a targeted pick against some of Dirtbag's more aggressive support picks like the Leona. It is a good way to respond to it. Having some technical issues. I am hearing sound now. Thank you so much for that.
I was just about to ask you about that. All right.
It goes here as well, but in this bot lane, it's very just kind of slow poking back and forth. That Karma pick really denied that level 2 power spike that you were mentioning from the Leona. A lot of bot lanes like to go for that play. Not seeing it today.
Yep, the safe play all around the board. Granted, they hit level 3 faster. Neverstory going to be packing a punch whenever those the ricocheting cans. I can't remember what the actual ability itself is called, but his first initial ability, making that hit that much harder, or picking up all of his abilities. Frez and Tentakai going back and forth in the top lane, up for a visit. Eminem right around the corner. Frez is probably going to have to burn his flash as the pony's going to push him away. A bit of a late attempt, tries to charge through, and he's going to go down, saving his flash. But first blood going to go over to Eminem on the Hecarim.
And that's just some unfortunate jungle tracking there from St. Clair. It was pretty likely that the Hecarim was starting on the red buff. We did see the enemy bot lane leash. We saw Carleton kind of get that delayed start into the bottom lane. So we had a good sense that the Hecarim was starting bot lane. And typically around this time, around 3.5 minutes, 3 minutes, 45 seconds is usually when junglers will finish their initiative and go up top lane. Again here, a very similar kind of point here from Yule. We just saw the Hecarim leave top lane. Where do you think he's coming next, buddy?
Definitely makes sense that Eminem would then show up, or at least take a peek around that mid lane area. But thankfully there for Yule, Flash and Barrier was both enough to keep him in the game. But now he's going to have to run for the hills, get back onto Fountain, get back into lane, and hopefully gets a little bit safer as this game goes on now that he's all out of dust. And here comes Eminem again. Lassie's getting absolutely popped, and it's going to be another one. Eminem showing up and making his presence known here in this game.
This is just kind of unfortunate for St. Clair. Like, you saw him top lane, and then you saw him mid lane, and then you saw him bot lane. And it kind of seems like at some point, like, fool me once, right? You got to kind of expect it. when it gets to this point here. That Hecarim, especially in the early game, going for the Sheen into the boots of swiftness already here at 5 minutes. Not a great start.
Not a great start for St. Clair, but oh my goodness, is Eminem going to be laughing straight to the bank here. As, of course, gets a little bit of extra damage from movement speed as well with his initial charge, I do believe. And a Sheen on top of that, oh goodness. But because he went back, it is going to allow Trick to try and move towards a jungle. Manspo down there as well to help him out with it. I mean, Eminem's on the way there, but I don't think he's going to get there in time. Sure enough, not going to be the case. Trick going to pick up that dragon.
It is worth mentioning that the Hecarim doesn't actually complete his jungle item, so while it does look like Hecarim is miles ahead of Trick, Trick does have the jungle item completed and is sitting on quite a bit of gold as well. He has completed 40 camps and this dragon here. We see a fight breaking out in the mid lane here. There comes P2P with the ultimate steal from Cassiopeia, locking down the kill onto Trick. Carleton rotating up from the bottom lane means they are going to pick up Yule as well. That kill going to go to Neverstory, who already has the BF sword completed here at 6 minutes. Carleton kind of running away with this early game a little bit.
Definitely putting on the hurt. Sure, that shutdown went over to Yule, but he did have to sacrifice himself for that. Has a little bit of damage now, but it's nothing that cannot be tolerated. And now, sure, Eminem was having a fantastic start, but now it's also going to be the case here for Neverstory. And Dirtbag, he's just been an absolute unit in regards to just being an absolute stun bot and keeping everybody safe and sound. And Frez is just getting absolutely bodied up here in this top lane once again, trying to top off on some minions, trying to get some health back. Can he get enough burst damage? Not with the shield of Tentakai, and that's going to be the solo kill going over to Tentakai.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a wet noodle fight for a long time there. Obviously, Tentakai rushing into the Tiamat on Shen, a very aggressive build, big burst of damage, lots of wave clear. Typically, you'll see Shen go for a more passive defensive build, maybe building into something like the Bombi Cinder, the Sunfire. It accomplishes a similar task and allows you to push out the lane, but it's not so much reliant on your auto attacks as it is kind of just your general presence being nearby the enemy minion wave or the enemy champion in the lane. But this Tiamat shows that there's definitely a very aggressive spin to this lane, and I think it's the correct choice in this matchup as well. So really taking advantage of Frez's weakness in that lane on this early game Maokai here, netting himself a kill, quick few $300. He's going to go home, cash that in for double Ruby Crystal. Carleton.
Not again.
And it just doesn't stop for Carleton. They just don't take their foot off the gas. And, you know, I love seeing that from teams. You have an early game lead, you don't take your foot off the gas. You keep abusing that pressure, and you really force the enemy team to kind of make mistakes, to overextend, to put themselves in bad positions. And speaking of bad positions, here's Lazi getting chased away by the pony. Does manage to pop the blast cone in time, but here comes the Hecarim getting committed onto Lazi as well. He's going to get this kill, clean this up here, looking for the spin to win. Running out of there as well, but actually going for the turn onto Yule as Dirtbag rotates up, but Yule with the ultimate committing down onto Dirtbag with no stun available, dodging back and forth, commits the barrier, but Eminem 5-1 now here. They're diving the tier 2 tower. This is completely disrespectful. A triple kill now as well here. Trick gonna clean up that kill, net himself a large bounty as well. Might be enough to get Trick back into this game and maybe out carry through objective control, but Carleton University 9-2 in this early game.
Not only have they not let their foot off the gas, apparently they had a NOS bottle in the trunk. Because what the heck was that? Like, so much confidence coming out here from Eminem. So much damage on top of it. Dirtbag right behind him as well. In that fight, when Yule came to reinforce, he was able to draw the ult onto Dirtbag. And then like make sure that he didn't get stunned that way. Which just let Eminem keep on doing damage. He's 6-2-1. Not even 10 minutes into this game, going to have one of the fastest Trinity Forces I think I've seen in the game in this entire season if he keeps this up.
That's about like 500, 600 gold off of it. Likely going to reset for a quickly soon here. I have to keep my eye on Dirtbag now, though. That Leona rotation was so expertly timed. Definitely going to have to watch the minimap a little closely. All the support players in the chat, keep your eyes on this one because, man, this guy can move.
And just keeps extending that lead more and more. We've seen other teams time and time again. They do find themselves in a lead up against St. Clair, but then they kind of take their time. They start getting comfortable, and St. Clair just farms their way up, maybe finds a good team fight or two, and eventually, even if they're a bit of gold down, they bring it back. If Carleton keeps this up, it's not going to be the case.
It's definitely winnable for sure, but there is something to be said about the power of early game Hecarim. Like, he picked up a Darksteel, and we've seen this from junglers before against St. Clair. That BM Darksteel, likely not going to be following this up into the Magi's as we saw from the Nunu in the Winter series.
Oh, yeah.
Darksteel is a little bit of a flex buy as well for this Hecarim here, choosing not to complete the Trinity Force right away. Trick actually going for the ward clear there, rather than looking for the turn on the Leona. There was the potential that Hecarim is also looking for a lane gank. Unfortunately for St. Clair, they do not have full map vision that we do, and Eminem is currently chilling in Trick's topside jungle, looking for a dive onto Yule. Yule, posturing himself down on the bottom side, seems to have a decent read of where this Hecarim is currently. He's farming safely from the side there, looking to go for this dragon, but the Rift Herald, as soon as Yule leaves lane, the Herald gets committed, and the mid tower is shortly going to fall.
They might be able to turn this onto the dragon as well, maybe not quite in time. But we'll have to see if Eminem decides to turn, since P is right there. But, they are just going to end up retreating. But it was kind of weird. Trick's down on the bot side. I was expecting to see some sort of engagement, but actually this is not exactly what I expected. Lassie getting peppered by Dirtbag. Curtain Call coming out, try and finish off Lassie. No mana left either. One more shot. Secured, sniped, and now Miensfo, he's not on a tanky character at all. Nearly getting burst out single-handedly by Eminem. And this bot lane, and just these lanes in general, just having such a hard time versus Carleton in this first game.
Yeah, Answer here getting kind of zoned off by the Hecarim. The Hecarim happy to kind of proxy farm this bot lane here. Yansfu looking like he might get out, but not quite. That last spin to win here. P2P with the ultimate steal again onto Yule, commits it for a big chunk of damage. That is able to zone the Cassiopeia off of this lane. Lazi, a little bit of a missing ping play there here, but Yule with the defensive ultimate there, protecting himself just under the tower. Eminem coming for the flank again. This man is everywhere, forcing out the flash from the Cassiopeia. Yule is going to escape with his life, but just barely. And Trick now is on the hunt in the topside jungle.
I think there is a bounty on the head of Eminem, and sure enough, because that Carleton all going to back up their jungler. Nicely done there, Tentakai. I think he had used his Stand United when Yule popped the Petrifying Gaze onto P2P. But it was just so weird. When, I'm looking back down when Trick is on that bot lane, and think to myself, okay, the Leona is point blank with them. Where's the Ash Arrow? The extra, the way that Carleton had been playing this lane, they weren't even level 6 yet. It's just been absolute dominance in this bot lane here. Neverstory, level 9, which of course a lot of that has to do with the fact that Dirtbag's been roaming. But even Dirtbag's level 7, just destroying the St. Clair bot lane.
Yeah, I mean, I think there the read was watch out for Hecarim, because this man is everywhere. And if you don't know where he is, you have to assume he's right behind you. So I understand, I guess, from that point of view, that maybe there was some fear about a Hecarim responding with a lane gank onto Trick. But Lazi with the overextension into the bot lane, getting kind of looking for the fight onto Leona and then getting punished for it really heavily. It just kind of seemed like a little bit of overconfidence there. Really kind of just overestimating how much damage he currently has. It is important to note the CS differentials here in these carry lanes. The mid lane is fairly even, however, there has been quite a bit of damage thrown onto Yule and a lot of focus coming out from the Hecarim, which is making it very awkward for Yule to farm. But in the bottom lane, 133 to 75. So not only is there a 60 CS lead, but there's a 2 kill lead as well. Eminem back in the bot lane again. There's not even time to talk about it, folks. He shows up when they're dead.
As soon as, or as fast as you can hit the delete button, there goes Miensfo, with all three of them turning on him instantly. Sure, Lassie's going to get out of the dodge after burning the flash, but there's still damage to be done here. Yule's going to try and at least trade this, though. P2P going down. Yule and Trick are going to try and pull this off, and they're going to be able to successfully do so. Dirtbag, unfortunately, something happened here. Maybe a bit of a disconnect as we have ourselves a pause. But at the very tail end of that, we did see Yule at least get the shutdown gold from Eminem's Hecarim, and we're going to be waiting for a brief moment to figure out what happened here. The game should be back underway shortly, but I guess the final thing, other than that kill, was just the bot lane turret did go, or was about to go down. GG
jungle inting and the immediate disconnect. You love to see it, folks. It's the classic solo queue shenanigans. Likely not the case here. Of course, there are some technical difficulties when everyone's playing from home, just COVID things. That being said, the rest of that kill does look pretty good for St. Clair. We got 2 kills now onto Yule, 3 total, including the one prior. So this is a big chunk of gold going into the Snake here. This Cassiopeia presents a really large late game threat, and into the draft of Carleton is going to have a number of opportunities to deal that damage in this game. I am actually surprised that Yule didn't opt for the cleanse in this matchup, considering there is both the taunt and all of Leona's arsenal there that he has to be afraid of. So that may be Carleton's biggest answer to this Cassiopeia. That being said, it is quite a big of damage that this Snake is going to be pumping out once we kind of hit that mid to late game stage.
Is it just going to be another one of those protect Yule as much as possible? Lazzy, you're probably on quarterback duty. We need your utility more than anything else. I mean, he's going for the Blade of the Ruined King, so we'll still be able to do percentage health damage regardless. But we'll have to see. Dragon's right back around the corner. St. Clair, if there's one thing that they've been doing, doing successfully, it has been these Dragons. Picking up 2 so far, uncontested for the most part. But this time, we do see Pete LP and Dirtbag already looking around. I believe they've spotted Trick, so they know what's up.
Yeah, this engage here from the mid lane, Eminem coming in onto the side, onto Yule. Trick looking for the backup, actually sits under the Petrifying Gaze for a number of seconds before choosing to commit the Ragnarok here. It is likely that P2P goes for the dive here onto Frez. There's the cleanup kill with the W. The Jin ultimate coming in, the Curtains Call from downtown. Not going to find the kill, but Eminem's not finished yet. Here's the ultimate now, solo onto Miansfu. Going to be hard for St. Clair to contest this Dragon now with 3 members dead and Carleton, all of them escaping with their lives, even if just barely, is going to mean later soul for St. Clair, if at all here. And Ocean Drake now being picked up with an Ocean Soul present on the map. You see these added brushes all over the map now. That is the added feature of the Ocean Soul, meaning there are more opportunities for surprise ganks in this game. And with a Leona and a Fed Hecarim currently present on the enemy team, St. Clair got a lot to worry about coming up into this late game stage.
With the amount of damage that this Hecarim is putting out, it's only a matter of time before we see him in the double digits in regards to his elimination count. Been doing a successful job, and you'll just trying to be annoying. Nice little poke there. But he's got to be careful. Okay, I guess Eminem doesn't have his ulti. We know that. But unless they were counting timers, they will not know that for the time being.
Let's hope Miansfu is screaming that in chat. And here we are, clearing out some vision on the bottom side, trying to reclaim a little bit of our jungle here in the bottom lane. The gold differential now is currently 8,000 in the favor of Carleton. That is a very significant gold lead, and it's important to note that the majority of this gold is on the Hecarim. He's done a decent job of putting some of that gold onto his carries in both the mid lane and the bottom lane. Neverstory is farming like a champion right now, currently 3-0-3 with 170 CS in 18 minutes. That's almost record CS score here at this time. Typically, at high levels of play, you're averaging about 10 creeps a minute, and with those added kills, definitely happy with the amount of farm that this 80 carry is pumping out currently on the side of Carleton. Whereas St. Clair really falling behind here in some of these numbers, at least in this bottom lane. We have a rotation up the top lane, but Frez with the snap W jumping through the Hecarim charge. Nice work there, but he's not out of it yet. There's currently a 1v4 in the top lane. Now, Danners, we've seen top lanes come out of this situation before. We've seen it at the world stage. We've seen it at the professional level. Are we going to see it in collegiate? Is Frez going to pull the 1v4 of the century here? And the Curtains Call being committed with P2P stealing away the Crystal Arrow. There's no opportunities for outplays there with the perma stun being committed. 3 ultimates having to go down there onto Frez, though. That is where there's no Lazzy with the ultimate onto Eminem. Miansfu running away for his life here, but Lazzy is managing to do a little bit of damage here. Miansfu trying to kite, but there's just not enough damage coming out of this 80 carry. Your Ashe has a cutlass and boots. She's not doing anything right now, and unfortunately for St. Clair, that means Eminem is having his way with them. He is just running through this map, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop it, except for maybe Yule here. The Stand United is coming down now onto Eminem the Shen with the teleport here. Yule looking for the snap ultimate, just barely missing it. Does manage to find the shutdown here. Is the opportunity to kite now onto Tensakai. Does whiff the Q. Gonna have to wait for that cooldown now. Backing out a little bit, resetting some of his health there. The poison does stick, and he's looking for the turnaround. Flash taunt from Tensakai. Very nice work here. Are the creeps gonna get him? No, they are not. And Tensakai walking out of that one 2-0 and 5 now.
Gosh, Lassie basically just tickles. There was absolutely very little damage being done. Now he has the Blade of the Ruined King that would have definitely made a difference in that fight, but it was just basically as slow, and let's be honest, Hecarim has enough speed already that he really doesn't care. He'll just plow through it anyway. And Frez up top had that 1v4 attempt, but unfortunately, the Ash Arrow coming out of PLP actually just shut down any hopes of him being able to make some sort of outplay there. He was already like halfway dead before the fight even really started, and it was just a bad time all around. St. Clair, 9,000 gold deficit, and really the only one who can pack any punch right now is Yule, and I'm sure Carleton is going to focus them extremely hard once these team fights start going down.
You have to think that if you're St. Clair by now, at this point, you've got to start thinking about your win condition. This is a really big thing with League of Legends, and especially at the collegiate level. Teams have to learn to identify their win condition. And if your win condition is your Cassiopeia, you should not be splitting your lanes. You should be crowding around her and protecting her like the champion you are. But this is what happens when you split your lanes. Lozzie getting caught out in the bottom side. Eminem just going to run her down there. The flash coming out from Lozzie means that the ultimate is the response here. Now going on for an extended fight onto Frez. Trick coming in for the rotation here, but Dirtbag is already there. There's not much you're going to be able to do here. Mietsu looking for an extended trade here, but Frez taking a ton of damage here from this Curtain's Call. Up in the top lane, Yule is battling on Tensakai. He knows there's no flash available. He is going to find this kill, but you're getting one kill up in the top lane while the enemy team is just running the board on the other side of the map. We gotta start thinking about these lane setups here for St. Clair. Gotta start thinking about where we want our carries and how we want to set up these lanes.
Well, I mean, at least Yule got himself the revenge kill onto Tensakai this time by a little bit of maybe extra bit of motivation going forward, as we now have Dragon number 4 on the board. Eminem's already in position. PLP is right alongside as well. It's going to be a little bit rough to try again here. He's going to charge on through. I think he took the Ragnarok from him. He's going to be able to charge through if he wants to as well. Doesn't even necessarily need to use it right now. Everstory just going to finish things off. And there comes the ultimate from PLP, and it's going to keep chasing him down. Miensfo going to be the first to go down, and another root on the Trick, going to hold him up. Yule, he's too squishy. He may have the damage, but he still needs protection, and when everybody's split up and not actually grouped up for a fight, there's nothing you can do to protect Yule, and that just makes this an extremely one-sided team fight. Carleton looking for Baron.
And this is why identifying your win con is so important, because if all your damage is located on one champion, and that champion's on the top side of the map, there is no way you can even think about grouping on the bot side and trying to take that fight. Because there's no damage that your team has. Miansfu, who we're typically seeing carry these early games for St. Clair, is now 0-7 on this Karma here. Not able to impact the map the way he typically is on these roaming supports like the Leona or the Pantheon. And because of that, St. Clair, probably unfamiliar with this style of play, it's starting to show a little bit.
Absolutely. It's like an old classic protect the Kog'Maw composition. He's your glass cannon. Everybody needs to be around him ready to protect and peel. But that's just not been the case here for St. Clair. Now, they're going to be kind of stuck on the back foot for the next little bit. Carleton now tying them up on Dragons 2-2, both the Ocean ones as well, it looks like. So that's just what? That's regen for days now, right?
Absolutely. The Ocean Drake providing that passive regeneration out of combat. It is, however, worth noting that St. Clair did manage to grab those 2 dragons in the early game, meaning that we're not even going to be able to consider Dragon Soul as a reasonable objective for the next 10 minutes or so. Because of that, that means there is a way for St. Clair back into this game. If they can get themselves in order, get ready for this next objective here, get that next dragon, they can look at contesting Soul as a reasonable objective. And if you can get a Dragon Soul on a composition like St. Clair has, this Ocean Soul is going to make these team fights feel very good. That being said, you got 10 minutes to go, and there's no guarantee that Carleton's going to give you that time.
Yeah, looking to see if St. Clair actually groups up. They're going to try and get the jump onto Dirtbag, but it's not going to be the case. St. Clair has to be extremely careful. This entire game, they've just been getting picked off like one after another. Very rarely is it actually a proper team fight. If anything, their engagement tools, like the Ash Arrow, has just been stolen by PTLP. And then this is exactly what I'm talking about again. Left alone, Trick a little bit far away. You're going to run for the hills. Never story. Going to finish them off. We have 2 Ash Arrows. That's the first time I've seen that in a while. And we're going to see pretty much everybody on St. Clair get absolutely deleted. Frez running for the hills. Lazzy's extremely low. Curtain Call is going to get the easy peasy Sniperino, finishing off that top side. PLP didn't even have to leave the bot lane. We're going to see 2 turrets go down as St. Clair is ace, and game 1 looks like it's going to be done rather quickly as Carleton just absolutely dominate.
Yeah, big credit to all of the Carleton lineup, honestly. Typically, when you see these games like this, you think, wow, that Hecarim really carried, or wow, that Jhin really carried. But if you look across the board for Carleton, every single one of their players performed in this game. While Yule obviously put a lot of pressure down into the Silas in the mid game, P2P, with these really clutch and well-orchestrated ultimate steals, was able to provide a lot of value for his team with the Silas. So I expect that going into game number 2, we are going to see some vastly different bans.
Would definitely agree with you on that one, because something just seemed out of whack. I know they don't want to give Carleton comfort picks, but some of the bans seemed a little odd. Like, I mean, it depends what do you value, like what's meta, and then do you value someone's comfort bit. So something like a Kha'Zix, for example. Do we really need to ban that? Or is someone just so good on the champion that it has to stay banned?
The issue with the collegiate kind of scene is that because you don't have as much experience with the teams you're playing against, you haven't had years worth of scrims against them. You don't have all this ample details and information and statistics about what champions players like to play or their particular proficiency with any style of play or whatever. All you're basically going off of is their recent match histories and your stats. You know, you'll go onto op.gg, you'll search their name, and you'll say, what do they play? What are they good at? And aside from that, that's basically all you can do for your drafts. There is the other approach, as you kind of hinted towards, which is looking at more of a metagame focus, where you say, this is what's strong in the meta right now. This is what's good. What can we ban that kind of fits that style of play that counters the composition that we're looking to build, and go for a more kind of team-centric draft. However, because there are some players that are just so good on their champions, you can't leave those one tricks open. But after this game, I think St. Clair's had seen more than enough to know that Carleton will work with whatever you give them. So maybe going to see some different bans. I expect the Hecarim being taken away, definitely, going into game number 2.
Especially since it's not a pick that we've seen Trick really pick up. Like, Hecarim's been left open constantly, and it seems like he avoids it. Granted, good champion, but that being said, each champion's, like, the playstyle may not click. So if we're not going to play it, I feel like they have to get rid of it and just hope that one of those scarier personal picks don't get picked up right away. Then maybe get it in the second go round if the draft lines itself up that way. But we'll have to see. They're going to be getting ready to set up for game number 2 right now. So we're going to take a very, very quick break, about 5 minutes, and we'll get back into the action. Carleton dominant in game number 1, but we'll have to see if St. Clair can turn it around up next.
Hello and welcome everybody to game number 2 in the Carleton University versus St. Clair College series. We saw Carleton play an absolutely dominant game, game number 1, and now we're looking at seeing hopefully St. Clair pulling it back in game number 2. We want a best of 3. We want to see 3 games, and the bands here are currently underway, already seeing the gin being picked up for Carleton University.
Yep, and sure enough, we were talking about maybe seeing some band differences, and that is exactly what St. Clair did. They got rid of the Galio, instead putting the Hecarim in there. And then for the side of, or at least in regards to picking, yeah, you were saying the Jin's already there. And okay, good. Get Mienzfo off an Enchanter. Get him a hard engage character, something with a little bit more beef. And sure enough, Leona is going to be that tried and true character. It's actually a good pick, I think, right now for St. Clair.
Yeah, actually interesting seeing. I'm a little curious about this. Carleton seems to be on the blue side again for game number 2.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if the rule set looks for OPSE, but typically teams will switch sides between game number 1 and game number 2. I'm having difficulty seeing the pro draft from my end. There is something obstructing my view. Perfect. Thank you so much, Mr. Danners. Looking at these picks now, we've got the Jin and the Echo here on for Carleton. And for St. Clair, the Graves and the Leona. I love these picks because I like it when Trick plays carries, and I like it when Mienzfo plays tanks. It's a good sign for St. Clair's draft when you have these 2 players on their comfort picks and on their comfort styles. Looking at Carleton, however, with just adding the Thresh to their lineup, It's a really interesting choice considering Leona just got locked in for St. Clair. Like, you can play the Zenith Blade, but you've got, like, Thresh has no base armor, right? Like, that's how this champion works. He picks up Soul, and that's how he gets resistances. So a champion now with no base armor laning into a Leona can't sound like a very fun lane.
Yes, in theory, absolutely correct, but at least they'll be able to still make some plays and then get tankier as the game goes on. Granted, now, yeah, all eyes are going to be on that bot lane once again, with, in theory, the favor should be going over to St. Clair's side if they can actually get aggressive and find their marks. Granted, that last game had a lot to do with Eminem's jungle pressure.
That's last game, isn't it? We said St. Clair had the better draft, and look at us. We got our foots in our mouth. It's just foots. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I said that.
Hey, it's okay.
Going into game number 2, we are seeing some more bans coming out here. St. Clair taking away the Aurelia from Carleton, with the Galio being banned in response. And just seeing now, actually, there was a Hecarim ban from St. Clair. So wise choice, especially after that way that game 1 went. Looking at the Echo maybe going into the jungle for Carleton, it is a flex pick. That being said, quite likely it goes into the jungle here. We don't see a lot of Echo mids these days. It just has a lot of losing matchups. So going into these second picks and bans, any pick in particular you're looking at seeing for either team here, Dennis?
Okay, so top lane, what are we doing? Are we going back to just Shen? Or either side, actually. Who's picking up the Shen? Or are we just going to ban it away and make me look silly? Absolutely, that's what we're going to do. So Shen taken off the board. And then Orin is also taken out as well. No Mord, so trimming the fat a little bit on that top lane champion pool. Both players going to be digging deep to try and find something to pick this time by. Do we see the Gator for St. Clair? Could see Renekton come on out? Or are we going to have something a little bit calmer, a little bit safer?
I think the Gator might be a little bit of an overextension here on St. Clair, especially since they're already running a carry in the jungle. I like this Volibear pick because it does provide some of that carry element that you were referencing in the Renekton. That being said, Volibear can play a very good tank game. And especially now, ever since that rework, the ability to ult those towers and disarm those towers for 3 seconds makes this dive comp from St. Clair look incredibly scary.
Yeah, this game looks like a complete 180. Instead of trying new things, this is a composition that they've essentially beat to death in the best way possible.
Was that Nico picked? Because it looked like the timer ran out.
The Nico is locked in.
That was a choice. Wow. Okay. Well, there's a blast from the past for sure. Haven't seen Nico in forever. Usually we see Nico in the top lane, in fact, and that's where it was popularized. Looking at Carleton's draft here, it's likely that the Echo's jungle, but honestly, a lot of these lanes are still up in the air, so St. Clair's really going to have to think this through here with this next pick. I personally would love to see a Syndra right now. I advocated for it last game. I think it's a very good pick here. Yeah. St. Clair trolling with the Heimer.
Heimer for the fans.
Yuri, I was talking to Yuri about it, and he says he keeps trying to get his team to pick Heimer, but they won't do it. Good thing that his team won't troll. I like that. And I like this Cassidy pick up here as well. The Cassidy, if it is into the Gangplank mid lane, it is going to be an incredibly difficult lane. However, if they called out the Nico correctly, should be able to survive into this burst mage poke, should be able to scale into the late game, and should be able to dominate. But there is a big asterisk on should be right now, because Carleton has showed that if you give them an inch, they will take a mile. And we can't give Carleton a mile if we're trying to go for game 3. So, going into game number 3 now, everything's up in the air.
I do have a little bit of an update here from the lobby chat. Apparently, their Carleton side pro draft was starting to mess up with them a little bit. That Nico pick is not what they were shooting for. It is, in fact, an Orianna. Yeah. So
that's what I figured. Did that information come out before the Cassidy got locked in?
Before the Cassidy got locked in? No, I didn't see it until then.
Oh,
or actually, no, hang on a second. St. Clair would have known about it, yeah. I just didn't see it until then.
Okay. Good. Can't have unfair drafting here, folks. That just makes your games unfair and makes your games unplayable, especially at a competitive level. Gotta make sure that all the information is accurate and presented for. And this is, of course, one of the issues with relying on a software like ProDraft. We use it because not everybody owns champions, so not everyone can swap, but it's a pain in the butt when it doesn't work. That being said, going in now to game number 2, don't be alarmed when you see the Orianna being picked up for Carleton University. That's going to be going to Pedo P in the mid lane against Yule on the Kassadin in the mid lane for the side of St. Clair.
Yeah, we were originally looking to see if there was any sort of lane swaps or anything happening, like who's going to be playing what. But yeah, now that we see that this Nico is actually an Orianna, Gangplank probably going up top, and then Echo in the jungle. We've seen St. Clair get torn up by an Echo in the jungle before, early in the OPSC season. I'm trying to remember which match specifically, but they let an Echo just go on an absolute tear like how Eminem did with the Hecarim. But then game 2, they were able to adjust it. That being said, they don't have time to adjust. This is, of course, a best of 3 series, so if this one goes through on them, that is it. Carleton are going to walk home with the W here tonight. Let's hope they have that experience in mind when dealing with Eminem's Echo.
I like that St. Clair's draft has a number of ways of dealing with these Carleton carries. You've got a lot of lockdown for some of these more evasive champions like the Nico and the Echo. Like, you have a really good way of stun locking with this Leona. The Volibear obviously providing a ton of crowd control as well here. We're just going to give the teams a second to lock in their picks once and for all going into game number 2 here. But St. Clair's draft, lots of good synergy, lots of good tower diving potential. The Kassadin pick is a little off base from what it looked like their composition was trying to accomplish. That being said, we've seen Yule pop off with it before. I'm hoping we'll get to see him pop off with it again.
Absolutely, and then of course, sure enough, Tentakai on the Gangplank, something a little bit more aggressive compared to the Shen, but at the same time, we've seen how he played Shen last game, and it might as well have been an aggressive character. Was able to really give Frez a run for his money, give him a real hard time.
Anything can be aggressive if you press your buttons harder, Dan. That's the core rule number 1 of League of Legends. If you press your buttons harder, you do more damage. Everyone knows this. And Shen was mashing his keys like crazy. That was a lot of damage coming up in that top lane. It is a good abuse of the matchup, and I think this Gangplank pick is going to be Tentakai flexing a little bit again because it is a good abuse of the matchup. This Volibear with that passive, that electrocute proc on every single auto attack, does a really good job of auto pushing in lanes, but you can't outpush the barrel. And with being a melee champion, it's very difficult to gain access to those Gangplank barrels without putting yourself in the line of fire. So for Tentakai up in this top lane, it's going to be about resource management, knowing when to commit those barrels and how to commit them. And Gangplank is one of those characters where if you suck, you really suck, and if you're good, you're really freaking good. So I think the top lane is definitely going to be a good place to keep our eyes on here for in this game. And the bot lane, of course, as well. Lazi and Miansfu, they've loved this combo, this Callista Leona. It's a very kind of, what's the word? Historic combo? Can we say historic? Like it was like classic from when these two champions, when Callista was first released, to combine her with something like the Leona or like the Taric and get a really aggressive tank support that you can just yeet right into the enemy team.
Exactly.
I think she's going to be happy to have that Leona there in this lane. And like we've said about Miansfu on this Leona, this man just pulls games out from a hat and runs away with them.
Definitely looking forward to seeing how St. Clair adjusts now that they're on a team composition, like you're saying, that's much more practice. We've seen them all on these champions at one point or another throughout the season. There's nothing new here, nothing out of place. I feel like every single time we've seen Mensfo pull out the Karma, it got completely squashed, but that's not going to be the case this time here. Back on the champions that we all know and love from our Saints players. So we throw it back to us for the moment. But shall be a good one nonetheless. I'm trying to think of proper ball delivery system combinations for P-Tal-P. Would have to, throw it onto Thresh diving in or something. Maybe the Echo as well. I'm trying to see how their team comp will work out.
I'm going to get myself adjusted here. My chair's doing some funny things to me right now. But yeah, I think you got the Echo there as definitely a good option. The Gangplank, not the best top laner to equip a ball to, for sure. So you've got your Echo. And you also have your Thresh, right? Your Thresh having the ability to jump himself to the hook once he throws it out. So you can give him a ball. He can slide right on in there. Usually don't want your Thresh right in the line of fire, but if he's delivering a big, juicy package in the Shockwave, not always the worst way to deliver that too. So are a couple ways of combining these abilities here for Carleton.
I guess as the game goes on as well, when that Thresh starts getting tankier and tankier, that could be more of an option as well. But yeah, maybe not so much as he's just starting off with none of his resistances and armor. But of course, before we hop into game number 2, I once again want to thank the sponsors that do make this all possible. Of course, being St. Clair Alumni Association, St. Clair College itself, Zekelman School of Business and IT, Tim Hortons, St. Clair SRC, and then if you happen to be pushing those buttons maybe a little bit too hard and your keyboard starts to act a little funky, go hit up PC Outlet.
Great way to kind of get yourself set up for the gaming life. I know myself, when I got myself settled here in my apartment, I had a full reboot and revamp of all my peripherals. Got to get ready for gamer season, Danner.
When is gamer season? All year long?
All day, every day, 24/7. It just doesn't stop.
This is where I'm showing my age, when I'm already getting a headache just after 3 hours of streaming. But enjoy it while you can.
Chug some G Fuel, get your Cool Ranch Doritos. It's gamer time. And we're about to experience gamer time here once again here on the Summoner's Rift for game number 2 in just about 30 seconds here. Danners, any last thoughts on these compositions before we jump in here to this second game?
I mean, I was pretty quiet about him during the last game, but Never Story did a fantastic job nonetheless. Back on the Jin, going to be looking to just tear it up once again. I want to see how this Gangplank works here for Tentakai. I have not quite seen the Gangplank in a good little while. But whenever I did see it, it felt like it was, like you were saying, it was either a rollover or completely get squashed. And then I'm worried about St. Clair's ability to deal with Echo, but we'll have to see. As we're just about to get ready to load into game number 2, St. Clair need to pull something out of the hat now. Otherwise, this might be a quick 2-0 today.
Mm-hmm. And these matchups, though, I mean, we can talk about drops all day. And we say this every time. But at the end of the day, it comes down to how the players pilot it. And if we're looking at St. Clair's champions, these are comfort picks. Largely across the board, these are all comfort picks. And with that, it means that no matter what you expect the limitations of the champions to be, the players will outshine those expectations time and time again. And we're hoping to see some bright, shining gameplay here from St. Clair as we load into the Summoner's Rift for game number 2. St. Clair going to be on the red side yet again here. That red side giving you better access to those dragons in the early game. This Graves Trick is going to be loving that access to the dragon pit here. As you mentioned, this Echo is going to be a threat, but it may not be a threat if St. Clair can pull themselves together in time for this early game control. Here you go, the champions lining up for the laning phase here. Looking maybe at doing a cheeky engage here with this Leona. I'm excited to see if they try something a little bit different now for the start here for game 2.
Just a moment ago, I just got the confirmation to see how the sides worked, and sure enough, whoever does go down in the game, whoever loses, gets to pick which side they want. So St. Clair just extremely comfortable on this red side compared to the blue. I know when we were looking at the Drury Esports Invitational as well, that's something that seemed to always come up, where red side, they seemed extremely comfortable, their strategies were working just fine, but when they were on blue, they felt a little bit out of place. And actually, Trick's got to be a little bit careful here. Might be taking some damage. Not as much as expected. The hook, though, this could be deadly. Trick might have to blow a flash, but he might be able to just walk out just fine. Pops a potion and gets out of dodge without blowing anything, but that could have been bad.
Unfortunately for Trick, it's going to mean that his jungle clear is going to be a lot less healthy than he would like. He's probably going to have to rely on Freds here for a much longer leash, which means that that top lane is inadvertently going to get held back from that as well. For St. Clair, this Graves is largely the way you're getting out of this early game. So that early game poke, even though it didn't result in a kill, is a pretty big win for Carleton here as well. To your earlier point about the sides, red side, it's advantageous for a number of reasons. The main one being that in a tournament draft setting, you have the ability to counter pick early. On blue side, you get priority pick. If there's a particular pick you're looking for, you'll find it every time. But on red side, you get the ability to counter pick, not just the first pick, but also the second 2 picks as well, at kind of a more advantage. I think it's 3 counter picks versus 2 here. We're seeing a little bit of an engage here in the bottom lane now. Niansfu going in for that quick poke on that Thresh, but see, that's what it looks like when you have no armor. He took 3 auto attacks, and he got chunked for almost half of his health pool. That's a very scary lane for Thresh. And St. Clair, knowing this matchup, knowing this lineup, as soon as they hit level 2, we are going to see some scary gameplay down here in the bottom lane. You can already see Carleton, a very knowledgeable team here. As soon as St. Clair is looking at that level 2, they backed right off the wave. And that's exactly how you have to play against Leona. Because if you stay up even a half inch more, you are dead, and there is nothing you can do about it.
Absolutely. While up on the top lane here, however, Tentakai pushing this forward has been giving Frez quite the hard time. Granted, it looks like Gangplank goes through his mana pool much quicker compared to Volibear, but a bit of a back and forth. Tentakai in the lead in regards to CS and levels off the start. Granted, we're only 3 minutes in, but still something that could be expanded upon as this game goes on. Yule getting picked here and there, poked around in this mid lane. He's going to definitely have to wait till later games to start being a major factor unless he can get some jungle help. Trick was looking towards that mid lane, but was spotted out. Going to just opt to go for the Scuttle Crab. And everything, for at least the time being, seems pretty quiet.
It looks like there was a ward in the Pixel Brush there. I was trying to see where the ward was for Carleton, but they did get themselves some river vision early. That's the advantage of playing Orianna into a melee lane, is that you always have lane priority. 95% of the time, you have lane priority here. And this top lane priority doesn't matter. It's just a fight to the death. And these Gangplank passive burns are starting to look brutal for Volibear. We actually see Eminem looking for a dive up in this top lane. We saw it from him last game, that early gank into the top side. Frez might be looking to punish this. It's a little bit of an overextension here, but Eminem is going to walk out of there with his life, and it looks like he's still going to continue to hover. They want this kill onto Frez, and with Trick being very clearly off into the bottom lane, we saw him with that gank onto mid lane, it's going to be hard for Frez to find his way out here. He has the Echo Stun there. He doesn't actually flash out of it. I wonder if he could have made that flash, but choosing, just like last game, preserving the flash and taking the death. That's first blood goes to Carleton.
That was definitely a rough spot. Granted, Carleton played that completely perfectly considering the situation. Had Eminem go in first, because if Tentakai went in first, that would have been a bad time. That being said, Frez coming in hot, going to be able to at least get a return kill. That's one way to do it, making that teleport work for him.
Yeah, and I think there is some value there in holding the flash. Frez coming back with the snap teleport into the kill chase. Gangplank doesn't have a lot of movement speed in this early game. Yule losing his siege minion under tower there is going to hurt him quite a bit. But Miansfu with the flash down into Dirtbag does commit burn the flash away from the Thresh. But the hook onto Miansfu means that Miansfu will fall here as well. Yule forced the flash away from this Orianna. Can't risk taking another Q to the face. Lazi with the cheeky little Q there, going to stop the recall there on the side of Carleton. But all these lanes now, very scrappy, very brawly. Whoever comes on top of these fights is really going to run away with this game. And unfortunately, looking for St. Clair, Carleton's enjoying this lead right now. 1K gold in the bank.
Definitely off to a solid start. The clutch extra little hook there from Dirtbag to turn that 3v2 into a kill for themselves. Gansfo just not finding his opportunity that time anyway. Looking to set up forward Dragon now as we get past this, or just about to get to this 6-minute mark in this matchup. And you just see right now across the board, for the most part, the only real back and forth battle has been from Frez and Tentakai up in the top lane, getting one elimination on each other each. Well, granted, that elimination went over to Eminem instead. But now we see a little bit of a chance at a scuffle here in the mid lane. Shockwave going to be right on target. Yule going to get hit. Miansfo still level 3, opting for the roam. Not going to look to engage as Yule took maybe a little bit too much damage to try and turn that.
Really good awareness from Miansfu, knowing that the Orianna was hitting level 6 and that the Echo would likely be looking to abuse that as well. A little scrap up in the top lane. Frez taking a big chunk of damage. The Gangplank ulti does actually get committed. Going to drop the shield on himself, hopefully enough to survive here. Trick is on the backline, looking for the flank onto Tentakai. Can Frez get out with his life? Not likely here, as that Q burn chases him and burns him down here. There's the Q over the wall with the ward here. Can Trick find this kill here? That's a lot of healing from Tentakai, and the barrel is so much damage. This is looking like a pretty good Gangplank outplay with the flash being committed as well. Trick looking for the kill with the Q, can't find it. Yule getting dove here under the mid lane tower. When the fight starts top and finishes mid lane, it looks like, and there is actually going to be the escape here from Eminem, getting the ultimate down, but the turret finding the kill reset. Tentakai does manage to escape in the top lane here. Trick forced to just farm out the wave. not level 6 yet, did not have the ultimate available for that team fight. Going to retreat to the jungle here as Frez resumes his formation back up in the top lane. But man, this game, so much action.
And Eminem had the right idea there in the mid lane, saved that recall right for the last second after the kill onto Yule. But unfortunately for him, the wave was not pushed up far enough, so the turret instantly locked onto him and took him down. So at least Yule's going to be able to make that a 1-for-1 of sorts, but still losing a bunch of time here in this mid lane. Let's PLP to just push the lane himself and go back, get some items, be hitting that much harder. And it's just, again, it's maybe not to the same extent as game number 1, but Carleton definitely have this early game on lock once again.
I have to say, looking at the way Carleton's been playing this early game is really impressive for me as a League of Legends, not only enthusiast, but also, you know, competitive advocate, let's say. I love coaching the game and watching the game and playing the game. And as a coach, looking at the way Carleton kind of adjusts their play style based on the way their opponents play the game is really fascinating. We actually saw Eminem, if you recall, right when that dragon was about to spawn at that 5-minute, 30-second mark, he was positioned and ready for that Drake. Last game previously, he prioritized top and he let Trick get away with the cheeky dragon. But this game, not only did he push his mid laner for mid priority, but he put himself in a position where he's able to respond to that early dragon. And he adjusted his playstyle based off of his opponents here. We see the hook getting landing onto Lazi in the bottom lane. Not going to do anything with that there. Dirtbag choosing to hold off on the initiation, knowing that Trick is nearby. But Carleton doing a really good job here with posturing themselves perfectly to counter what St. Clair has to throw at them.
Of course, in game number 1, the one thing that St. Clair did have a lead on for at least a little bit was that dragon count. And of course, this first one going to hop over to them as well in this game. But at least it seems like Eminem is making sure that he's trading 1-for-1 with it. Rift Herald about to get picked up. Possibly look towards the mid or top lane as we do see Frez once again just getting shoved and pressured right under his own turret to the point where Tentakai could basically have complete free reign. Frez doesn't have a teleport either, so he's going to have to call upon Trick to try and make something happen. But if that does in fact end up being the case, we do see Eminem also moving right away.
Eminem flank here, but Frez, knowing proactively that it's going to happen, not finding enough space here, actually committing the ultimate and still getting poked out. No, Frez. Unlucky up in that top lane here. A little bit of a fight breaking out here now. The Flay does get committed by Dirtbag onto Miansfu. Going for the cheeky little hook. Is going to get the cooldown reset. Not going to look for anything more. This Rift Herald being committed up into the top lane. The Gangplank already has a 40 CS lead, and now you're giving him turret plates. Yule, the shockwave coming down from P2P onto Yule in the mid lane. There's fights in the top lane. There's fights in the mid lane. There's fights in the bot lane as well. The Callista ultimate coming down onto Dirtbag. The flash forward doesn't find the kill. Never Story with the execute right there. Eminem finding the kill onto Trick in the topside jungle as well is going to look to get out of this one from Frez, but Frez managing to kill off Eminem before the shield comes down. This Echo is trading a number of kills, absolutely blazing it with that KDA right now. Tentakai is going to walk out of there with that Gangplank barrel and get himself a nice little burst of movement speed and walk out of that one. But man, oh man, this game is insane.
Never Story just came up clutch in that bot lane, able to secure the kill onto Lazi before Dirtbag went down. Dirtbag easily, one more shot, maybe 1 or 2 more minion shots would have taken him out, but it gets completely denied. Lazi uses every resource in his arsenal and could not get the job done. Never Story now up 2-0. I think that's the... can't exactly remember what that item is called, but he's already got one full item ready to go. And this bot lane's going to be hurting, jungle's hurting, top lane's doing well. Mid lane is essentially like just pressuring and coasting, which for the most part is essentially all that PLP needs to do. And it's just getting worse from there, it looks like, for St. Clair.
Yeah, the Stormies are getting finished on the Jin, needs to take a large burst of damage here. The Flay actually flayed Yansu out of the Jin route. Doesn't mean he's going to get out of that one, though. Too much damage coming down. Dirtbag actually committing the stopwatch there to avoid the Rave ultimate. Lazi finding the kill there, but just the instant pop here from Eminem. Now 7-0. Looking at the Gnasher's Tooth here, we do see the Darksteel coming out for this jungler again, but this time it's definitely not a troll buy. This is a Fed Echo. looking at potentially going into the Magi Soul Stealer if he can find the advantage. This is looking a little spooky though here. Yule's in the pixel bush looking for the gank, but Eminem calls him out with the ward. The flash over the wall. 8 and 2 now on this Echo. That is a lot of gold.
That decision making has my mind boggling more so than it already was. Because, yeah, you're going up against the half health Eminem, but granted, he's fed as heck. And we're going to see, okay, one's going to get traded out here, Frez. He did get himself a shutdown earlier, but he's going to find himself another. We have some attacks happening down the bot lane as well, where the Echo on pursuit once again. Dirtbag takes the tower aggro, and you can essentially say goodbye, Lazzy, as we have Eminem dominating, but we might have the cleanup crew. If Yule could find himself one, is going to find the Thresh. Can they take care of Eminem? He's going to probably just try and go for the execute. Actually, it doesn't go in his favor, so that shutdown goal just went right into the pocket of Lazzy.
We saw as soon as that shutdown comes down, the instant purchase of the Berserker Gates for Lazzy. Just actually sold it now, looking at maybe building into something a little bit more aggressive, actually opting for the Zeal here. Not sure how I feel about this item choice. I was actually going to comment on it earlier, but Berserker Greaves for Kalista is a big power spike because your ability to jump on your passive scales with the tier of the boots that you currently own. And having sold his boots now for the Zeal means that he is going to lose a lot of that access to movement speed. So he's valuing critical chance over movement speed. But at 15%, 25% crit chance on the Zeal, like, I don't know about that one, sir. Definitely an interesting item buy for sure. In this bot lane here, we do see a little bit of a CS lead going to the Jhin. There's about a 20 CS lead here as well. Looking at a Zeal of his own in addition to the Storm Raider. So while Storm Razor rather. So while these AD carries are relatively equally strength now currently in this early game, the rest of the team is a lot much farther behind. Forcing a lot much farther. I'm having a hard time with words today, Dan. You're gonna have to bail me out here a little bit.
It's okay, it's okay. We all have those days, but we do see Dragon coming out here for this side of Carleton. Not going to let St. Clair start even having that as a possible win condition as we move forward into this game, one apiece now. And like with the thinking back to Lazzy and like not having boots and whatnot. I mean, of course, Kalista being able to hop back and constantly kite is absolutely fantastic, but what can you do about somebody who doesn't care and just teleports on top of you anyway? Can you really kite that? You need somebody, you need Mansfo or somebody to kind of help you with that. And we do see this mid turret going down. Yule was getting pressured, but at least he can rift walk away for the moment. Back down to bot side. It looks like actually the ult gets used. This was a little bit overzealous in my opinion. Neverstory just going to tank the stun and laugh and move forward knowing that that ultimate is blown. And here comes PTLP actually, but Trick is right there as well. But we can see PTLP packing quite the punch. May not necessarily have the kills, but still hurts a ton. Frez trying to be the tank, but gets completely exploded anyway. 3-on-3 battle here, not going in the favor of St. Clair. Lazzy going to continue to try and get the victory here on the PTLP. Not going to happen. And this is just looking like another runaway here in the favor of Carleton. Might be able to trade one back, or maybe not. Maybe I'm a liar. We'll have to see as this standoff goes through.
Eminem's just chilling in the base, and he's having a grand old time. He is looking for the recall here, but with Trick rotating up, might actually look for a kill of his own, and he finds it. Eminem with the burst. Does have the Magi Soul Stealer completed now. That's 12 stacks now onto this Magi. Might even be looking for the cheeky kill here on to
Oh, there
Yule.
we go.
But whiffing the E blink over the wall means Yule can snap the ulti and find the kill. Definitely a little overzealous there from the jungler there on the side of Carleton. We see these plays come out a lot when a team thinks they're so far ahead they can do literally anything they want. Not anything, sir. Big shutdown gold coming to Yule there.
I mean, that was playing with fire because that could have definitely gone either way depending on who got the jump. Thankfully for St. Clair, it went to Yule's favor this time. But some of these team fights are just an absolute mess for the most part here for St. Clair. I think that was a triple going down in the bot lane. Everybody went down, and then somebody got dropped. It was Frez who got dropped up top as well. And then
just all over the map all the time.
And Tentakai's taken that top turret down already from the base. So the inhibitor exposed. If he gets left alone once again, can just run all the way into the base if he really feels like it. Start getting those super minions up there and ready, adding constant pressure, of course.
It is worth noting here for St. Clair that there is a lot of scaling capability here on this lineup. We mentioned it a little bit during the drafting phase. So there is an out if they can make it to the late game stage. That being said, it's kind of like last game where if you can make it there, that's great, but no one's going to take you there. You know, you got to get yourself to that late game before you can start experiencing that. Yule went for a very slow build this game. They said the Rod of Aegis into the tier of the Goddess. This means that this Carleton isn't really going to hit his power spikes until that Seraph's Embrace is completed. So we're waiting not only for a Rod of Aegis timer, but a Tier of the Goddess timer as well. So this Carleton has a lot of time before he really starts pumping out that damage that we want to see from him here in this game. Tentakai, having dropped that top lane tier 2, doesn't need to be top lane anymore, can look at pressuring some other sides of the map while the rest of his team groups out, going into the fight here onto Yule. Yule looking for the extended trade, doing some damage, might be overestimating his strength here a little bit. Tentakai happy to heal off a lot of that burst there with those oranges. Yule looking for some poke here, Tentakai giving him some respect in that lane. But now in the mid lane here, we see the team grouping up, might be going for an extended fight here. The Shockwave is available for P2P, might be trying to find an opportunity to use it here. I actually didn't realize there was the tier 3 that went down in top lane. Holy crap. There's nothing left. You see a little bit of a fight here now in the jungle, but that's big. When you said tower, I thought you meant tier 2. When you said tower, I didn't see it was the tier 3. Oh my gosh, that's very scary.
Yep, take your eyes off that top side for one moment, and it could be curtains. As we now see Jin start firing the ultimate off, but Never Story is going to try and get one more shot. Doesn't quite find it. Shelly going to be getting some big tower damage here. And did he just actually get the ball camouflaged by Shelly? That might have been pretty sick. Solid shockwave there. And another huge hook from Dirtbag to find one more elimination. Gets the ult from GP to slow him down a little bit further, and this mid turret might go down without a hitch. Never Story relatively low, but he is surrounded by tanky bodies. And we actually see Carleton split up. They want to try and get both these inhibitors.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, what are you going to do, right? Like, I think there was a way for St. Clair to win this game, but that window was passed. That time has gone by, and it's looking pretty doomed. I don't want to be a naysayer, but it's 19 minutes and 30 seconds, and you're down 2 inhibitors. Mansfield even X-flashing into the minion wave. I think he's having a little fun with it now. That dragon now, that ocean drake, it is yet another ocean soul on the map. So not only an ocean soul here, we are actually going to find a kill onto Never Story there as well in the top lane. There is the flank there from Yule on the Carleton here, finding that bit of burst damage that he needs to take out that kill. But again, it's towers, it's inhibitors, and it's ocean souls. And Carleton is just loving the way that this map looks right now.
Yeah, Carleton still have every single one of their towers. That hurts.
Ooh.
Definitely
yeah. And I mean, with a comp like St. Clair, there's always the Hail Mary, everybody press R and see what happens. And you might be able to find it. I'm not going to lie. It's always possible. You know, anything is possible. But with a 12-4 Echo, with a Death Cap and a Magi Soul Stealer at 20 minutes, running the map, pressing the delete button on half of your lineup, doesn't look too great.
Yeah, it's not even just the squishies at this point either. I feel like something like the Graves or even Mensfo could go completely like 100 to 0 in a second. Dirtbag gets caught out, but he's going to be able to flash aside. But yeah, as we see, Eminem looking for a possible engage, throws a stun out, but St. Clair opting to retreat, probably wisely so. And that was just a single Q coming out there from Eminem and chunking a quarter of the HP of the tank on the side of St. Clair. So this is going to be extremely hard for St. Clair to try and properly engage, considering how many factors they have to think about. And they're going to try and actually pull it off. Dirtbag's actually going to find the kill onto Mansfo, as we see Lassie trying to do the 1v1, but it does not matter. Eminem just does not care, instantly blowing him up. Frez is kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place here. No flash to get out of dodge. Yule and Trick, the final ones alive here. And nobody is going to make it out unless Trick can somehow run all the way to the base, maybe camp there and just wait for the team to hit their Nexus. Because this is looking like a bad time. Just run it down mid at this point, close it out. Looks like we have ourselves a quick one today.
Yeah, I mean, we thought game 1 was fast, but game 2, 22 minutes and they're breaking down the Nexus. Carleton University, well played.
Absolutely.
Really good job from them in game number 2. Dude. Like man, their macro was insane. The way that they move around the map was insane. Their ability to play the lane, insane. Like it's just really good League of Legends coming out from Carleton. And I think if you're staying Clair here, once this game's over, you're looking at this VOD and you're taking notes. You're studying furiously. You're getting ready for that next match you got coming up down the line here, because there is so much you can learn from a good team like this.
Well, Carleton with an absolute fantastic adjustment compared to what we've seen during the preseason, where preseason it was a back and forth game even then. But now, I don't know what it is, but they definitely turned it up to 11, absolutely putting a clinic on our Saints tonight, which obviously that one's going to hurt a little bit. But of course, you've got the VODs, you got the replays, and you had two different kind of experiences, I would say, because you had the one where they tried something new, and then this was the like tried and true main lineup, so to speak. If they got the champions they wanted, the ones they always play. And if anything, it actually went down quicker, which is a little odd, but it is the case sometimes with these scaling compositions. Sometimes they just get shut down without question, don't get the time to get something started. And I mean, when you have Eminem, who's just adding on an additional carry threat from the jungle, dude went 14-4-1 in that game, was hitting everybody like a truck. Nobody was safe, and it was just too far gone at that point.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this team for Carleton, Eminem played out of his mind. He played a really good jungle game. He had really good map movement, really good rotations, knew to abuse cooldowns, which you don't see a lot from junglers. And on top of all that, still managed to find 160 creeps in 22 minutes. Like, that is just really exceptional jungling. When not only are you dominating the map in kill participation, but in creep score and farming as well. So junglers, take notes. Keep your eyes on this one. Definitely a lot we can learn here from this Carleton team. And it was just a great game to watch, obviously.
Absolutely. And of course, we give a ton of props to, well, Eminem, but we give props to Carleton as well, like to everybody, because even though we may not be saying some of these other players as often, they were still massive factors. I mean, Neverstory on the Jhin, once again, just quiet as ever, but still the assassin and getting involved with only 2 eliminations today in this second game, but still 11 assists while only giving up 1 death. Dirtbag, I feel like I was calling his name out pretty consistently for starting the fight properly. Even when he went down, his initial hook was oftentimes enough to get things started. His death may have then turned into a triple, which is absolutely fantastic, of course. Tentakai just kind of kept himself up in the top lane for the most part, but pushed all the way down right to the top inhibitors and was a threat in that sense. And P, of course, last but not least, with the Magi's himself, but a flawless 4-0-3. So everybody on this team.
P is the silent assassin. He doesn't do much. He doesn't say much, but he's there, and he is very relevant on this map. He's not getting these big flashy solo kills. He's not making a montage, but he is a very prominent and dominant mid laner. He's getting really good farm scores and impacting the map in very meaningful ways.
Mm-hmm. And then up in the, well, if I just quickly look over to our St. Clair squad, of course, like, Rob's given it the shot here today. Unfortunately, it didn't go in their favor, but there was still the adjustment. I don't know if it was just the picks or what. I don't know if that Maokai pick from game number 1 was something they were just testing out for competitive or what, because when we went to the Volibear, it was a little bit better overall. He was able to like trade at least a little bit evenly, but of course, you have Eminem constantly feeding additional pressure. It went down a few times that way. I did like right off the start, though, where he went down, but then teleported right back in to like, secure that kill. Like, at least, like, sometimes when you're getting beat pretty consistently, you kind of just start turtling naturally. So to still be able to hit the go button and get aggressive, thinking that you still had a shot, like able to get the kill that way was fantastic. Then looking at the rest of the squad, Trick, I mean, his objectives were on point for the most part. Like I was saying during game 1, like Dragons was the thing that was kind of keeping them, like was not necessarily keeping them in the game, but they at least had that lead going for the first little bit. But otherwise, maybe not so much this time.
And for St. Clair, I mean, they have all the right pieces. It's just about putting it together, right? We know all these players can perform. We've seen all these players perform. The Jury Invitational, excuse me, The Drury Invitational is an excellent example of that. We've seen these players have incredibly good games and strong performances, but sometimes it's just about figuring out how to make it click. And I think a large part of that is going to be coming down to how could we organize ourselves in not only our team compositions and understanding our champion strength, but understanding who our win conditions are and playing around them. Because I feel like there's a lot of times we're on the map, we're making plays on one side when our carries are on the other. Mm-hmm. And it's just about kind of getting it all into motion and figuring out how to pull it together. So definitely not all hope is lost. Losses are learning opportunities. So if I'm St. Clair going into my next game, I'm looking at this as a great opportunity to improve myself and get better.
Absolutely. That being said, though, let's take a look at some of the additional matches that we do have lined up. It's a little bit of a slower week, but it's still just as exciting as we hop on over. Of course, tomorrow, the UCEA Overwatch playoffs continue. The second match in the playoffs for our Saints. If it's not on the UCEA GG channel, it will be here on ours, of course. Then also later on in the same day, Play versus Rocket League. Getting closer to the end of that season, but our team has been doing a fantastic job so far. Massive positive record. Be sure to tune into that one at 8. If the Saints win on Thursday, there'll be another Overwatch playoff match on Saturday. And then to line up with a doubleheader, we have Call of Duty TESPA action as well on Saturday at 7 o'clock, and then on Sunday as well.
Lots of great games coming up for the Saints, so make sure to come out and support your teams in that. Always exciting to see some great esports action here at a great college that really does its best to support these esports programs. And obviously, big thank you to Mr. Dan Banners here on the production crews, solo carrying his team 95% of the time. It's an honor to be able to cast with you, and thank you so much for having me on the desk again tonight.
Well, I appreciate it, and good job to yourself as well. Always a pleasure casting with you, and it's definitely fun watching you level up as well here on the commentary desk and dropping the League of Legends knowledge when I'm constantly spinning around in circles in my head. You know exactly what it is I'm thinking about.
You're doing great.
Same to you. Now, looking at specifically one thing that wasn't on the schedule, because it's a little bit further down, but the next League of Legends match specifically, we have there's still a couple more matches here in the OPSE season, so we're not quite in playoff territory just yet, but it's going to be St. Clair College versus Trent University. If my schedule is correct here, that's on Thursday the 12th. So we'll still have some more League of Legends action next week coming up. We'll get to see what happens here, what kind of adjustments our St. Clair squad makes from essentially the beatdown that we saw Carleton give us today. And they got a lot of time to figure something out.
Absolutely.
Now, with that, however, we're probably going to get ready to call it a night unless you have any last thoughts, of course, on this matchup.
Just great League of Legends. Love to watch the game. Love to watch my team perform. I'm looking forward to seeing them turn it around next week.
Absolutely. So with that, we'll head on out. Thank you all again for tuning in, for supporting your friends, family, and your school programs, of course. And we'll see you tomorrow for Overwatch and Rocket League.